Microphone check 1 2 1 2. Microphone check 1 2 1 2. Welcome here. Welcome here. Yes, I know I'm a little late. Well, a little more than late, but I am late nonetheless. Had to take care of a little business before I got on. Business was pressing, was necessary, so of course I had to do it. Um, you see the title of today's stream, so you know what we're getting into. You know what we're talking about. I did take the time to look at the entire documentary, but I'm only going to discuss episode 1. I'm going to take the time to pretty much go over, for the next 4 weeks. And on the last week, I will go ahead and give you my overall take from this documentary. But today, I just kind of want to go over episode 1. Now, I'm gonna let everyone know up front that I'm not gonna give you a play-by-play. I mean, that's not what I'm gonna do. Um, I'm giving you what I consider my reaction, but not a play-by-play, which is a good thing for you because if you haven't seen it, then it gives you time to go look at it. One of the things that I'm sitting up here taking my supplements. That's why there's like a little pause and you hear me drinking in the background. It's okay. If I had the camera on, you'd be able to see me do it, but I don't do that on Wednesdays. I turn the camera on Fridays. Gives it a different look, a different aesthetic, right? Plus, I don't have to get dressed. I can just sit here and talk, and that's cool. So yeah, so I'm gonna talk about episode 1 today. And then next week will be episode 2. The week after that, episode 3, and then the week after that, episode 4, and final conclusion. Okay. I think this is going to be a huge story. But I will tell you this: I don't think that anybody's going to give you the kind of perspective that I have that I'm going to give you. I'm going to go totally different. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you're just looking for someone to say, "Oh, Diddy's a bad person," um, then we already know that. Like, there's really no reason to discuss it. I'm sitting up here, going on. I want to see if it's trending at all. Um, we have one thing. I will tell you that. Hold on, let me see if it's trending at all. It's not trending on my end. Now I'm in California, United States. No, I don't see anything. So what is this, Luther? Um, Luther clause. I thought that was something else. Okay, I don't see it trending. So that says a lot. But at the same time, I think what it says for anything is that most people have already made a conclusion as to how they feel about Diddy. Well, it's probably trending, but it's not top trending. I will say this that um, Diddy's team is demands that Netflix pulls the documentary off of their platform. Let me go ahead and read it to you. The 4-part Sean Combs The Reckoning, executive produced by longtime rival Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, covers Combs' 1990s rise, bad boy empire, and claims from associates like Audrey O'Day. Netflix rejected the demands, confirming all footage was legally obtained, no payments were made to participants, and Combs declined an interview offer. Combs convicted on in October 2025 on prostitution transportation charges and serving over 4 years while appealing, has denied all abuse claims amid the ongoing feud. So I think it would be responsible for me to like tell you guys that yes, Sean Combs and his camp has denied most of the stuff that has been alleged in this documentary. Also, I will give you one spoiler alert. Cassie's not in it live. Okay. She did not interview for this documentary at all. That's not to say that, you know, that's not to say that she didn't want to. That's not to say that the allegations are false. That's just to say that she wasn't in it. There could be a lot of different reasons. I'm gonna see if Cassie responds to Diddy Doc. I don't see anything where she responded to the documentary. So not only did she not respond to the documentary, but she's not actively in it. She's not being interviewed for the documentary. Okay. Now, again, like I said, if you were if you were looking for me to just sit up here and bash uh for me to bash Diddy, um I mean, you could do that already at home. I mean, we all already Diddy's been around long enough that you know everyone has an opinion of him already. Like he's been around since I want to say the late 80s. And so that gives him about 25, 35. I was almost 40 years being in the public light. So it's very hard to find people who are not going to have an opinion of Diddy, you know. So if you're one of those people that are like, oh, I don't like Diddy, you know, now that I know what he's done, he's a monster and I want nothing to do with it. Okay, there's plenty of people out there like that. And I just don't want to waste your time trying to discuss that and say how bad of a person he is. I didn't. I wanted to give you the benefit of my experience, some of my expertise, some of my knowledge. The fact that, yeah, I grew up in the 90s. So therefore, I wanted to give you the benefit of what I was experiencing in full time. Not that I ever met Diddy, but you're not gonna like I've been in hip hop since 1993. So that's all a Diddy, right? That's like I fell in love with hip hop in 1993. So I've been through all the phases of Diddy. And I'm very well aware of the previous phases when he was doing R&B, when he was doing Jodeci, when he was doing um Mary J. Blige. Okay. I considered him at one time one of the greatest um, hip hop producers of of my lifetime. Okay, just one of them. In fact, in terms of hip hop production, I put him overall like going both coasts, like everywhere, like East Coast, West Coast, South. I definitely put him in the top 5 producers. Okay, so I have that. I also have education that allows me to look at it from a broader point of view. Um, and so for this first episode, which focuses mostly on the background and his time and his getting into hip hop, I just kind of wanted to just spend some time discussing my perspective on it. Okay. But before I do that, I got to do it. I'm going to share my screen really quick and show you something I think is really, really important. Yes. Ah, yes. For those of you who come here frequently, you guys are very, very much aware of it. We got the Mad Scientist merch store. and you can go to the QR code and scan the QR code and go to the website and check out the merch. Like I always tell you guys, I got dad hats. I got uh, really great hoodies. I mean, people really like the hoodies. I mean, this is probably the most popular product are the hoodies, and I got 2 versions of it. I got the white logo version, and then I got also the black logo version. This is the black logo version. It comes in multiple sizes, multiple colors, okay? And so you pick the color of your choice, pick the size of your choice. You know, I got large, extra large, 2X, you know, I got plenty of sizes for you. So support your guy, support your guy, support your guy. Go to the website. All you gotta do is put your camera up here on the QR code, go to the website, see if there's something you like. Okay. It's the winter's coming, it's cold, and you may need that, or you may need I also have a beanie. So beanies look really, really nice, trust me. All right. That being said, I want to take you back to 1914 or 1915, actually. And you're like, oh my God, he's not going to go history. Well, you knew that. You knew I was going to go back in history, go back in time. Okay. That's where my education is. That's what's going to make it very, very interesting. Trust me on this. Okay. Um, you know what? Before we do that, why don't we do this? I want to uh, just kind of give you an introduction to the story. I'm taking this from Variety. Variety wrote an article about it. I want to give them credit for that. The long-awaited docuseries Sean Combs, The Reckoning, which was announced in late September 2024, has arrived on Netflix, and the 4-episode chronicle of the life of rap mogul Sean Diddy Combs is filled with darkness. From a turbulent childhood to a career that turbocharged off a tragedy in his community. The 4-hour project reveals much more than just the prostitution charges he was found guilty of on July 1, resulting in him being sentenced to 50 months in a New Jersey prison. The Reckoning, which is directed by Alexandria Stapleton and executive produced by one of Combs' longtime hip hop enemies. Why do you have to be an enemy? Curtis 50 Cent Jackson is sure to shock fans with his access, which includes footage Combs commissioned to be shot the week leading up to his September 16, 2024 arrest for federal sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution, and racketeering. From Combs's sketchy plan to activate a pro Diddy social media campaign to continue questions about his involvement with Biggie and Tupac's death to numerous jabs at his lack of musicianship, there is plenty to break down. Okay, so that's where I'm gonna stop it at because I want to pretty much get into uh, episode 1 and what I picked up. Okay, I want to start with the film that was released in 1915. It's called The Birth of a Nation. Um, if you have any kind of educational background or if you are African American, you have heard of this film. The Birth of a Nation was pretty much one of the most racist films ever made, um, as it relates to African Americans. But the reason why it sticks around is because most film students will tell you that it's the film that they have to study in film school because the director D.W. Griffith, as racist as he was was innovative in the way that he shot things. And what this film did more than what one of the things that this film did was give those who make film a blueprint on how to create film. Okay. the modern day film. Okay. I have friends who went to film school of all races and they still teach this film. And I'm always like, so how does, I ask the black people, how does it feel to like have to watch that? And they're like, it's disgusting, but once you're in a clinical setting where you're just looking at technique, then it's like, okay, that's the only way I can get through it is by looking at it from a technical point of view, not from an entertainment point of view. Okay. Um, Probably the biggest thing that it did, like why it's famous, is not the fact that it was racist, but it depicted black men as very weak, as very um dumb, right? But at the same time, very conniving. Um, and they depicted black men as a threat to the white race, for lack of a better phrase, or yeah. But they depicted black men as a threat. At the same time, on the same line, it depicted black men as docile, uh, uneducated, dumb, and weak. At the same time, in this film, it created another caricature of black women in which black women were domineering, um, but at the same time, they were only good for taking care of people, right? So, like in today's terms, I would say it depicted black women as, the angry woman, B word, but at the same time is really, really good at taking care of your kids. Okay. Just ready to take care of you. And it depicted black men as boys, little boys, right? Who at the same time were a threat to the white race because number one, these little boy men would rape women, rape white women, or try to tear down white society. Okay. Now, why am I going back to this? Because this film pretty much set the standard for black characters in Hollywood. Okay. It pretty much said, this is how we're going to depict black people moving forward. Right. And there were a lot of, Bill Cosby has a really, really great film. Let me look that up. Because I just actually saw it this morning. Bill Cosby. Yes, that Bill Cosby, the one that was in jail and did all that stuff. Um, it's called Race Lost Stolen. That's not the name of it, but okay, there it is. Um, okay, so let's share this tab instead. Um, Here it is. Bill Cosby in 1968. He created he created a documentary or film. It's called Black History: Lost, Stolen, or Strayed, part of the Black American series, which Bill Cosby narrated and starred in. The film explores the misrepresentation and erasure of Black history in the United States and its effect on Black children's self-perception, highlighting contributions that were often ignored in mainstream narrative and textbooks. It critiques how Black people were portrayed in films and discusses the impact of stereotypes. Okay, so if you get a chance to watch this, I think it's about 50 minutes long, 53 actually to be exact. It actually discusses how Black people were portrayed in films, um, starting from that Birth of a Nation film. And what we found is that what you can see is that not only were white writers writing these kind of characters, but there were black people who actively participated in these kind of characters on their own and made a lot of money. Okay. S Some famous characters, Stephen Fetchин, okay? One, the Mammy character, we see her in Gone with the Wind, right? Very caring, very dominating, taking care of the white folks and making sure they're okay. At the same time, treating, black men like they're little boys or little babies. So you get the phrase, "Oh, that's my baby," right? As opposed to the black man being a man. Um, so this goes on, starting in not before 1915, but after 1915, it becomes very, very dominant. Now, fast forward to fast forward. Hold on. Okay. So fast forward to the 1940s, which is the start of the civil rights movement. Yes, the 1940s. I know a lot of people think civil rights started in the 60s, but it actually started in the 40s. The March on Washington was actually that was the second attempt, and it was not called the March on Washington. It was called the March for Freedom and Jobs. And during the 1940s, that's when there was a big push to open up government jobs for Black people, federal jobs for Black people. And so the first attempt was in the 40s, but then the big one that we all know happened. Um, the March on Washington, when did it? I think that happened late 50, early 60s. March. I like to be I like to be accurate. The March on Washington happened. Oh, excuse me. 1963, August 28th, 1963. Okay, I knew it was like top of the 60s or the end of the 50s. Okay, so that's so starting in the 40s, you had a movement, with the civil rights movement. For those of us who study, we consider that period of time the civil rights movement, right? In 1963, very specifically, um, there was a speech given by Malcolm X, which is called "The Ballot or the Bullet." Now, we're not going to go deep into what it means. I'm just going to say he is not calling for violence in that, because a lot of people misconstrue that speech as like, give me the ballot or we're going to pick up guns. It's not what he was talking about. It's a seminal speech. It's one of those speeches that marks time. So I always recommend people, I always try to study it at least once every 6 months. I try to go back because that's one of the I'm gonna go get my master's degree. And so that's one of the things I want to discuss is that time period. I want to start my discussion in 1963, in April 1963, with that speech. Okay. Now, but it's not talking about violence. It's actually talking about like, hey, we got to go vote. It's a pro-vote speech. Okay, so you had that happen, and from there, like I said, it's a marker in time. Um, to Because what Malcolm X talked about is a black nationalist agenda. Okay. We need to go vote, but we need to have a black nationalist agenda. Okay. Now, uh, we so while Martin Luther King and all those organizations were progressing through the civil rights movement, there was an organization called SNCC, okay, and which was a part of the civil rights organization, but they were younger. They were, high school. I mean, not high school. They were college kids. They were a lot younger. One of the people that was part of it was Stokely Carmichael, okay, and Another moment uh, that is kind of a marker in time happened in 1966 because, and it was actually this moment was actually discussed by Stokely Carmichael at the time. His name is Kwame Ture now. Um, but um, he discussed with Martin Luther King whether to have this chant. And it's a very famous, like I said, if you're into this space, you know this chant where they're like, what do we want? Black power. What do we want? Black power, right? This was done in Mississippi, 1966. And it was headed by Stokely Carmichael at the time. He was a student with the SNCC organization. And the reason why that moment is so important is because we went from before that moment, we African Americans pretty much identified themselves as Negroes. Okay. You were a Negro. And the whole point of being a good Negro was to work within the system of the government or in the system of the society, of the American society. We just want to get in and be treated equal. You know, we want to be treated the same as everybody else. We want to be a part of this system, this American system, right? Okay. From that moment, 1966 on, the Black community started kind of distancing itself and saying, we need to, which is why I refer back to Malcolm X's 1963 speech, Ballad of the Bullet, because Black people started wanting to self identify as its own entity and start to develop its own agenda, um, its own voice. Okay. And in today's time, you know, if you're younger or if you don't study, but you're in today's time, which obviously you would be, um, you know, it's kind of like we decided, okay, we're going to start having our little picnics and it's just going to be Black people. Okay. And we're not going to invite anybody else. We just want to have our little space. Okay. In the 90s, that's pretty much like I went to Long Beach State. That's what we did. We had our own little space. Okay. And we just wanted to kind of like self-segregate within within this space we call America, right? All right. So 1966, this happens. So now you're probably sitting here wondering at this point in time, what the heck does this have to do with Diddy? Why is this even important, mad scientists? I mean, this is crazy that you would take us on this journey talking about Africana studies and Diddy. Don't try to make Diddy out to be some good person, or maybe he was like maybe he was abused or done bad, and that's why he is the monster he is now. Okay, no, I'm not trying to do that. What I'm trying to do is give you context, give you some background context so you can truly understand who Diddy is and why. Okay. And if you're wondering, well, why would I want to know why Diddy is or who he is? Because essentially, and what I'm going to say to you up front, so you understand, Diddy is a reflection of us. Let me say that again. Sean Diddy Combs is a reflection of us, and it's very apparent and obvious. And so you got to have that proper foundational context in order to understand, what do I mean? I don't feel like I'm an abusive person or would do the things that he did. I don't feel like I would, right? Okay, and that's fair to understand, but there has to be an understanding as to why there's two sides to this Diddy argument. And if we don't understand the full context, we don't understand the foundation, then we won't understand why there's two sides to this Diddy debate and why there's not just one. Like, we all know that certain people in history are bad people, and there's no debate. But then there are some people in history that there are two sides to it. And, you know, as people who love hip hop, which is I am one of them, I have to like look a little deeper and say, you know what? Why is he so beloved in hip hop? Why can he walk around? Why was he able to even operate for almost 40 years. You gotta think about it. Like, I think he got to Uptown in the late 80s. I want to say 88, 87, 88, 89, and he was not convicted until 2025. That's almost 40 years. That's almost 35 to 40 years of him being able to operate. At the same time, he's able to amass a tremendous amount of wealth, and he's able to exhibit a tremendous amount of power. And you have to wonder, how is it that he's able to do it? This one guy. And so, what I'm explaining to you guys is giving you the foundation so you can understand um, why he was able to do that. So, episode one really breaks down, you know, his history. It gives you historical context. It shows you, everyone knows his story, but it kind of gives you some more of the details that we were not privy to, because I'm pretty sure that he didn't want us to know about these details. I'm not going to spoil alert, but it does give you some additional details about what happened to Diddy in his rise. Okay. Now, um, back to my lecture. So anyway, 1966, we have the what do we want? We want Black Power, right? And 1968, um, James Brown comes out with a song. Say it loud, black and I'm proud. Okay. Like I said, if you are black, and which I am, or African American, or just a James Brown fan, then you're very well aware of that song. Okay. Say it loud, black and proud. The significance of that song was felt globally, because what it did, again, it switched us from going, or African Americans, from being in the mode of of the civil rights era to uh the Black Power movement. Okay. The Black Power movement takes you into um the Afrocentric phase of it. Okay. But we don't go into the Afrocentric phase. We're just gonna stop Black Power. And what that does in the 70s is create Black exploitation movies. Okay. For those who don't know what Black exploitation movies are, let me go ahead and kind of give you some background. Uh, exploitation, Black exploitation movies. Okay, so let me go ahead and I like to give you guys, actual facts. So that's what I'm going to share. Okay. Black exploitation, mostly associated with the film genre. Black exploitation refers to films made in the early 70s that feature Black actors in an effort to appeal to urban Black audiences. The term itself is a portmanteau of Black and exploitation. That's a new word, and has been used to describe films that either took advantage of Black stereotypes or conversely offered new narratives by centering Black characters as heroes in genres like action, horror, and comedy. Outside of film, the term can refer to a broader form of social, economic, and cultural exploitation of Black people throughout history. So, Black exploitation movies, let's go into images. These are the typical Black exploitation movies: The Mac, Shaft, Jackie Brown, and which the film industry, including Black people, wanted to show Black men in very powerful roles. No longer were they going to be Stephen Fetching, they were going to be badasses, right? They were going to be strong men who can get things done. Typically, these men, they don't work a regular job. They don't work for the man. Okay. Um, they're able to, break laws and not be held accountable. Inevitably, they're gonna find some white person to kill. White person would be the man. Okay. Um, the women, instead of just being asexual mammies, the women are going to be overly sexual, right? So you got Jackie Brown, who are going to be overly sexual. Okay. Um, you have men who can go have sex with anyone that they want to have sex with. Um, the women are, instead of being like, oh my God, in the old way, the black women were seen as undesirable. Now you have black women who are very desirable. Okay. So when I look at Puffy, this is what I see, the Mac. And so when I'm looking at the when I'm looking at the first episode of the document of the docu series, one of the things that was mentioned was that his mother, who was an adult at the time, would essentially dress, you know, Diddy, Sean Combs, her son, at a starting from a very young age, dress him in this kind of outfit. She wanted him to be fashionable. She wanted him to reflect what she knew at that time, which was powerful men, power, okay? Not a Negro or someone who's slow, dim-witted, but someone who's powerful, right? Someone who can doesn't have to worry about, you know, the rules. Someone who, you know, can get anything that he wants. And if he breaks the law while he's getting what he wants, it doesn't matter because he is the Mac. Okay. And I found it very interesting that how much Diddy was influenced from a very young age from this type of from these types of movies and these types of this new sort of stereotype. Now, we'll digress for a minute and mention while I was taking my one of my classes at Long Beach State, um, we found something. My teacher wrote something very interesting, and I'm not going to be able to find what he wrote, but I wanted to show you guys something really quick, okay? Because we connected it to the 14th Amendment. You're like, oh my God, Diddy and the 14th Amendment? Okay, it's very, very quick. If I can find it quick. Um, what the 14th Amendment essentially said was that um, I want to find it so I can like read it. But essentially he said that African Americans, anybody born in this country was now a citizen and would be granted all the rights of white citizens. I want to say white citizens or white people. I think it might be white citizens. Um, but I found it very interesting that they said that now everyone born here would have the rights of white people, the same rights as white people. So um, the question I asked my professor at the time was, what are the rights that white people have, and are they truly free? Right? If we're all just getting the same rights as white people, then we have to look at the rights that white people have and realize that we're just going to be limited to the rights, whatever rights that white people have, that's the only thing we're getting. Okay, that's my point. And so the reason why I bring that up and the reason why that is significant is because essentially African Americans, in an attempt to try to take agency or take control of their image may have, and this is just my educated hypothesis, may have said, we're going to set the standard for who we are as men based upon what we think white people have. Let me let that sit with you for a second. We are essentially, when we create a shaft, when we create these characters, we're just fighting so that we can act like what we think black white men act like. And in our mind, white men can do anything and get away with it. Now, how does this connect to Diddy? Because if you ask the question, why is Diddy doing all these things? Why was he able to get away with all this stuff? My my impression that I got was that he, as much as he talked about black excellence and being a black man, essentially what he was doing was playing a character that was based upon what he thought, essentially he thought white men were able to do. If white men could do this, then I should be able to do it too. If white men can exploit black people, then I should be able to exploit black people too. If white men can exploit their women, then whichever woman I think is mine, I should be able to exploit her too. If white men can do these things and get away with it, can break the law, then I should be able to break the law and get away with it as well. And so I found it interesting that the very thing that his mother kind of trained him, not in a direct way, but I would say indirectly trained him to be, I think Puff is like 51, 52 years old. 51, 52 years later, he is now becoming a victim, not not just of the crimes. Obviously, the crimes, well, I can't say he's a victim of the crime. He has become accountable to the crimes, but essentially what has happened is just a result of how he was raised. And I know that sounds a little simplified, and I guess I probably could have said that, but I wanted to take you guys back to see, progression and how this has worked. Because for many of us who came into hip hop, we came into hip hop because hip hop felt strong to us. Hip hop felt, like, yeah, I could be a man. Hip hop felt liberating to a lot of us. The problem is, how do you define manhood? And the way that we define manhood in hip hop, for the most part, is violence or exploitation of others, or I have information for you, but I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to sell it to you. The game is not to be told, it's to be sold. Okay. Um, Hip hop is, I have all these women around me and they all love me, and all these women are sexy and they all want me. That's what hip hop, that's how we have defined hip hop. And the reason why it's important for us to understand this is so that we can know that we have a moment in time right now where we know the results of exploitation. We know what happens when you exploit someone. We know what happens. We know what it looks like to abuse people, not just women, but men. Okay. We know what it looks like. We know what it looks like when you are abusive or when you try to get away with illegal acts. We know what it looks like and we know the result. Right now, we currently have Diddy in jail, R. Kelly's in jail. Many of I can go over a list of people who are within the hip hop community who are either in jail, dead, or broke. And we have to be honest with ourselves and say, listen, maybe our definition of what manhood is, what strength is what good business is, maybe that's the problem. And maybe we need to look at how we have decided to um, to define all those things and say to ourselves, maybe it's time for us to really re-examine how we define manhood, how we define strength. And it can't be based upon, well, I just want to be as strong as the white man, or I want to be able to get away with things just like the white man does. And that's not to say that white men are that way, but that may be our mindset, that white men can do that. White men can rape women and get away with it. White men can exploit people and get away with it. We may feel that way. Now, whether it's true or not doesn't, that can be debated. But the point is that I want to be able to make in this session is that it may be time that we redefine ourselves, and in turn, we're able to redefine what hip hop really is. Because at this point in time in history, we have enough. Hip hop is 50 years old. So we have enough information at this point to know what is good about hip hop and what is not good, what is healthy and what is unhealthy. You know, what essentially harmful to the community of hip hop, to African Americans, and to other groups that get involved with hip hop. We can now look and say, okay, what's healthy, what's not. And I think that what this documentary, if we look at it from the eyes of, hey, how is this a reflection on me, someone who loves hip hop, as opposed to just saying Diddy's a monster? Yeah, you could say that. It's easy to say that, but I think it would be way more beneficial for us to say, you know what? Why is it that someone like me who grew up on hip hop, why do I put Diddy in my top 5 producers of all time in hip hop? Why was I a kid growing up thinking like Diddy? I mean, if I had met Diddy, I would probably be in the same situation as a lot of the people that he met, because we all thought in hip hop Diddy was the man, like especially when it came down to production. Now, rapping, lyrics, but he even addressed that. He's like, I don't write rhymes, I write checks. Okay. And we celebrated that. A lot of his music we celebrated. And at the end of the day, Diddy was just walking around trying to play a role that was created, black exploitation, and cultivated in him by people who probably loved him, by people who probably just felt like I want him to be a strong, independent man, but probably did not have the understanding of how do you define what manhood really is. So that's my first impression. I know it's a little deeper than what most people are going to be talking about. I know that I've gone places that most people are not going to go. I mean, somehow I got the 14th Amendment in there, black exploitation movies, the civil rights movement, and the Black Power movement, all in this, all within this, reaction. But that's who I am. I'm an educated person, I'm a scholar. And whenever I look at things like this, I'm always looking at it from a different perspective. And hopefully you guys enjoy that perspective. So there was no script. So if it sounds a little rambly, I apologize. But I do think that the documentary is very interesting. I do think you should watch it. Do I think it's, just to kind of end this with my opinion of the first episode, do I think that it was complete? No. I would have loved, like, each episode is about an hour long. I think that each episode could probably be a docu series within itself, because there's so many things that, it's one thing to say that Puffy was a certain way, but you always have to explain context and explain why. Why was he able to get away with this stuff? It wasn't just because he's just some diabolical, some boo kind of guy. Like, no, it was bigger than that. It was the music that people were so attracted to him. It was how the decisions that he made to take R&B and hip hop, put it together. Um, it was so easy for me to fall in love with hip hop because it represented something inside of me that I wanted to have. I wanted to be. And I wish it could have explored that a little bit more. But I think if you had someone sit down and actually write this out, it would either be a doctoral thesis, a PhD paper, or it'd be the longest TV series in the history of TV. But I think, maybe at some point in time that needs to happen. Because if not, we're always going to be recreating the same. I see the same things happening now, where we have the same black exploitation movies, in horror, especially in horror, where you got, these characters that are being recreated, repackaged. And there's probably some young kid right now who's looking at those movies and thinking that's what it is to be a man. We have to ask ourselves, really, is that what it is to be a man? These movies that we have, the music that's put out, is that really what it is to be a man? And so, yeah, I think it would be, this gives us an opportunity to really, really deep dive and to think about, how we define ourselves. So, anyway, hopefully that was very helpful for you. If anything, it was entertaining. Give you something to look into, give you something to read. Birth of a Nation, the Bill Cosby doc. It's pretty good. 14th Amendment. um, I will be returning again on Friday, where I'll be discussing music marketing, and we're talking about how to start formatting the music that you create. So if you are into music, come back on Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I will be doing a stream on that. If not, I will see you guys next week, where I will give you a reaction of number 2 of the 4-part series, and it's every part of the of the series is different. It touches on different issues, so it won't be just a recap of what I said today. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I will see y'all on Friday.